up, Barefoot Nation? This week, even though it's not too bad outside, I am going to be indoors looking at all of my houseplants. Probably not all of my houseplants, because that would take 2.5 days. Yeah, that's probably accurate. Anyways, guys, let's go! Super quick detour. I do want to show you guys the garden right after the snow melted. If you guys will recall how much snow I had, if you go check out the post with the polar vortex video I did last week, everything seems to be doing pretty good, all things considered. But I'm distracted. So we're going to start off in the kitchen, which is probably one of the most plant-dense rooms just because it faces south with some nice big windows. So this plant here actually came with the house. This is an aloe vera, I believe. It didn't look fantastic when I first got it, but I just put it outside in the shade and did literally nothing to it all summer. And yeah, it's clearly come back pretty nicely. I do have kind of a couple plants occasionally up there at times, but just like opening these cabinets is kind of annoying if you have too many plants up there. Of course, there's one of my pieces of art that I like to use as a background of an orange bird of paradise. I do have dishes in the sink. I'm human. Forgive me. Sorry, Mom. So these two plants here are two aroids, two types of philodendron that are uncommon as far as like you can't get them in a big box store, I don't think, at least not around where I live. But these plants here are in a south-facing window. You can see the backyard. And this here is a philodendron painted lady. It's notable with a lot of these. I'll mention quality of the tissue culture. When you guys are getting house plants, I definitely want to get this in here early. That make sure it's doing what you need it to do when you buy it. And this painted lady, I do keep kind of on moist to slightly dry. The watering is not going to be something that I can exactly give you the exact details of how it's going to work for you in your house, because everyone's humidity is different, their light's different. You know, with a different environment, the watering is going to be, I can't exactly pass along that information. So this plant here, this other philodendron, is supposed to be a Jose Buono, and you know, I first saw this on shout out to Kaylee Ellen, her channel, and like the photos she was showing was like these stunningly gorgeous variegated leaves. This is a perfect example of a low tissue culture quality plant. It's like some of the younger leaves have it, but this plant has not. This plant has basically put out these 3 leaves since I've had it. Even some of the kind of medium to older age leaves are still green with absolutely no variegation. So I got this at Lavacat's greenhouse, and you know, it's just abysmal quality. The plant obviously is healthy, but you know, again, just, yeah, big shame there. So this here is actually a little root sucker that grew up off of a Boston fern. This has actually been growing in only water for a couple months now at this point, and seems to be doing just fine. It might be a little bit pale. Maybe a slight, extremely diluted fish fertilizer would be good. And the vase that you see it in, my Nana actually gave to me a couple years ago. I thought it was so cool how it was a cylinder with that bubble in the bottom of it. Thanks, Nana. And then this is a cutting board from the Darwin Martin house. Right next to that little Boston fern root sucker is one of my favorite plants. Is this Calathea lutea here. And this plant, one of the reasons I like it is because it reminds me of banana plants, which of course, while it's inside, will be dormant. I try not to keep bananas as house plants just because of spider mites, and they get laggy. They really need full sun. But yeah, so this is a Calathea lutea. The first time I showcased this plant on my channel, some of you guys who live in the Philippines and other tropical countries, I suggested growing them in full sun, and you wrote comments which were absolutely incredible to read, so thank you for those. And yeah, so the other plants that are in this container are various different plants. This drooping thing here is actually another full sun plant It's called Tigridia pavonia, otherwise known as Mexican shellflower. And what's cool about it is the light is down here, and so the plant actually is adapting and growing downwards, which is just fascinating. These things here actually are flowering vinca from summertime. The one that's getting the most sun is the only one that seems to have made it. The flowering vinca actually covered most of this plant, and in fact it grew to about this high on the Calathea, to where the Calathea was mostly in basically just the big paddly leaves sticking out of the giant flowering vinca. It was absolutely gorgeous. Here's a photo from summertime. I'm also going to top dress some manure, composted manure, into this planter. If it's composted enough, it shouldn't be an issue to do while it's inside. So I have to tell you something about this planter, because this pot, when I first brought it inside, had an ant colony in it. Yeah, so I dodged a bullet when I'm telling you the size of this ant colony. So what I did was I took the pot back outside while it was still warm out that day, like 60 or something, and I just flooded this pot. And unfortunately, I did have to put in some insecticide, because obviously ants being out there is where they're supposed to be. And you can't really blame them, because they found habitat, and you know, they didn't know that I was going to be bringing it inside. But you can also see in here, I'm kind of spending a lot of time on this pot. You can also see here that there is a beautiful red flash caladium. Again, caladiums want to have some direct sun, maybe not a ton, but you can see that the color is washed out and it's a little more green, which is, I actually still think it's beautiful. It's different. It's beautiful in kind of a different way, which is interesting. Two other Calatheas in this pot, which I absolutely love, are Calathea misto, which is right here. I love how it's kind of reminds me of a Dieffenbachia or a dumb cane. This is a bird feeder, so just haven't gotten around to where I want to hang it outside, but it's like one of them window bird feeders. This planter needs water, but what's cool about this planter is it's another this is another pot that I had outside on the patio, and I absolutely love when I can have kind of the same mixed planters that I had outside, and I can bring them indoors to kind of enjoy that little taste of summer. Anyway, this is a Stromanthe called Charlie, and I absolutely love the variegation, and even cooler still, in time it'll have a tall flower stalk with orange, hard to describe, just tropical looking flowers. And then these plants are actually begonias, but they're more of the foliage houseplant type begonias, which they were adapted to shade. And so when I put them outside, I had them actually in, I forgot how many hours of direct sun, but I had them in some sun, and they burnt to a crisp. And all my friends who came over were like, "You're gonna kill your begonias," and I was like, "It's gonna be fine, trust me, I hope." Over here, right up against the window on the what's supposed to be a boot rack, of course it's full of plants. I've got a cool mix of plants here. This big palm is actually a sealing wax palm. This is what they look like mature. It might be confusing because that needle palm is outside and that's hardy, but it kind of looks like it fits in with this whole vibe, because it does. I also have in here a little bit of rosemary, which looks kind of sad. I think I need to repot it. And then I have right here a young windmill palm. And so most of my Trachycarpus that I do have, I think, 4 at this point. I try to get like the cultivars of Trachycarpus. I wish you guys could, I just bruised this rosemary. I wish you guys could smell that. Trachycarpus Charlotte is beautiful because I think, based on what I have been reading, is that this plant is going to have leaves that are bigger than most of my other forms of Trachycarpus or windmill palms, and they have some Wagnerianus in them, which is kind of a smaller leaf Trachycarpus, semi-hardy. As you can see, the palms officially hardy to zone 7B, but you know, it's a plant that once they're big can be absolutely zone pushed into colder areas if you do the protection. Of course, that's where I got it. PDN is great nursery. Be cool to meet Tony Avent one day. Certainly giving him a lot of my money. Here's another non-house plant that's doing very well, and I'm stoked about it. This is an elephant ear called Survivor. It's technically not a colocasia, it's a leucocasia, and this is going to basically grow. It's kind of the species form of Thailand giant, except this plant here, the colocasia or the leucocasia Survivor, is going to basically produce a stand or a colony of plants. So it's going to spread, I don't think aggressively, I actually have no idea. So most of these plants really, it's kind of functioning as my grow space. Most of them are not house plants. Again, this is another garden plant. I actually spoke too soon when I said I don't keep bananas inside. Normally I don't, but this is a Musella lasiocarpa, which is another hardy species of banana, which has a flower that people call it the Chinese lotus banana. There's all sorts of common names. I'll list a few on the screen. I don't know where I'm going to plant it, go figure, but you know, it's just something that I've always wanted one. You know, I've always had Musabastu, which I love, but it'll be interesting to have the Musella in the garden as well. Speaking of banana relatives, this plant here is a hardy, in air quotes, it's the hardiest form of heliconia that there is, and it's called Heliconia shediana. So I'm really happy with how it's doing as a houseplant, but cooler still about this plant is that I actually had it upstairs in my kind of cool storage space in the attic with the other plants, and it was on average about 40 degrees up there, sometimes colder, sometimes warmer. But any of you guys who grow heliconias know how they don't like anything below 50, like 55 even. And so to say that there's a heliconia that can withstand those temperatures is pretty incredible. That said, a lot of the other true tropical heliconias, I think their flowers are prettier, but again, that's all based on pictures, and once this thing flowers, I will absolutely show you guys. And, you know, even still, it's like just a lovely foliage plant, even if it doesn't flower. The last plant on my boot rack, on my barefoot boot rack, is another philodendron, and that one is called Burle-Marx, which is actually a cutting off of a bigger one that I had. And it's got some spider mites right now, as does the, to some extent, the colocation. But this is a type of ficus that it looks dead, but what happens once it's been inside for a little while is it'll get spider mites, it'll drop all its leaves. I will shake off the leaves outside, and it'll be dormant basically for however long it wants. It really depends. I think it's called like Ficus Too Little or something, but I don't remember the name, and I unfortunately think I lost the tag. You can see that even this little tree here still has a root flare. If you guys saw my video recently, the condensed version on how to plant a tree. And then of course this plant here, which needs some cleaning up and a repot, is one of my favorite plants. I love plants with subtle variegation, and so this is a type of Stromanthe, or Calathea, is how it was sold to me for some reason. This is actually not Trio Star, it's Magic Star. And so this plant here will never really develop excessive amounts, although it's making a liar out of me. It'll never really develop as much variegation as the Trio Star form. It's mostly kind of like the Thai constellation variegation, which again, I love subtle variegation, but it does, as you can see, still have the beautiful kind of burgundy undersides to its leaves. So again, I need to clean this up and repot it because it's been in this container for a long time. It's hard to do sometimes though, because like I love the combo, how the plant looks against the wall in that kind of minimalist container, you know, but the plant needs what it needs. So down here I got, this is the last few plants that I have in the kitchen. I have another Calathea orbifolia, and I want to say I got it sometime in fall, so I haven't had it for too terribly long. But again, I haven't repotted it since I got it. So with this plant, I'm going to try to wait until it goes outside in late spring to repot it, if I can. If I need to repot it during winter, it is what it is. Hopefully it doesn't throw too much of a fit. And so this is one of the few succulent things that I have.
And I have my friend Julia to blame for that.
This little succulent planter I've had since the spring, and it's grown a lot, but it's leggy. It's pretty stretched out. So what I need to do is put it back outside in part sun for the summer. It's cool. I like it. It needs more sun, even though it's facing southwest. So this here is a lady palm. Lady palms are expensive because they're slow growing. But what you see next to it is that's a Calathea macquayana, which I just kind of set there. And didn't forget about, obviously, but, you know, kind of, I'm sure you know how that goes.
A few moments later.
And so I put this coffee tree in sun, but the problem is I put it in sun in August or September, whenever I got it. And so coffee trees take a long time to adapt to. They can take part sun, for sure, and that's actually going to help them with their fruit production. But they need to have that happen, that change in sun in spring, so that they can kind of drop all their leaves and piss and moan while there's, you know, still ample time for it to regrow and be beautiful. So this cluster of plants here is, as you can see, I have a lot of palms and Calathea and Stromanthe. I haven't really re-upped my aroid collection since I dealt with mosaic virus back in my parents' house. I will do a separate video, unfortunately, on mosaic, but you know, it's something that we all need to be very, very aware of, but it's not going to be a video I'm looking forward to. But anyway, right here you can see a Chinese fan palm, and I put this in too much sun this spring. Again, I'm kind of surprised. I don't exactly live in a, you know, sunny southern climate, and yet this Chinese fan palm absolutely hated being in sun, and so I was shocked by that. So next year I'm going to put that in more shade. Right here beneath it is another Stromanthe. This is actually the wild form. I'm going to tuck this into a deep shady corner in the summertime, and that's going to give my garden that extra real tropical vibe. So this is a Calathea vittata. Actually, no, this is a Calathea white star. And this pot here, I actually repotted both of these recently. So this is a perfect example of not repotting Calatheas unless you absolutely have to, because I couldn't keep it watered well enough, and it's not dead, obviously, but it is. This is also one of the more, let's just say, finicky Calatheas that you can grow. And then the Calathea that might actually be dead, or at least very dormant, is right, the one that I'm shining the flashlight on is this Calathea roseopicta. So that's what it's supposed to look like when it's healthy and happy, but again, I transplanted it kind of too late, and so Calatheas oftentimes will grow back from their corms, but another thing I've noticed is when you get plants home from the nursery, oftentimes nurseries and growers will be using chemical fertilizer, and that's literally like cocaine for your plants. And so basically, plants hate the transition period when they're getting off their cocaine, chemical fertilizer, and going to organic means. So they're also kind of dry for Calatheas. They don't really like to dry out at all. But one of the tricks that I do is I have Calatheas growing in deep pots. So you allow them to form roots that grow down pretty deep. So here you can see this is my this is a little kind of trough planter that I have with a couple Calathea lancifolias or rattlesnake plant, and then also there's a cat palm in there. Cat palms, I think, are one of the whole genus Chamaedorea are just fantastic houseplant palms. The thing I originally wanted for this wall was to actually have a Monstera adansonii kind of eat the whole wall, but the Monstera adansonii got mealy bugs, and so I put it outside, and then it got frost, and that's the end of the adansonii for now. So all these plants in this room get kind of nice bright northern light. They do have a nice big window, but it's not exactly any amount of direct sun, although west is that way, and so the Chinese fan palm does get a little bit of direct sun during the day, but not much. Here you can see my fish tank. Drop a comment down below if you want me to do a video on my tank. I'd be happy to do that if there's interest. And so right here, this palm, even though it looks pretty rough, is one of my favorite palms. Again, this Chamaedorea hooperiana is growing back from its summer burn, basically. I had no idea, even in part sun, like this palm, even up here in western New York, does not like any amount of direct sun. But this is one of the bigger growing members of the Chamaedorea genus. What I absolutely love, and you can see again some of the burn that this sorry guy experienced over the summer. But I absolutely love kind of the bamboo-like culms. I think you would call them culms. This is another perfect example of a Calathea which doesn't grow for me like at all, but in a nice deep container it'll grow. This is a Calathea rufibarba. I think I'm saying that right. But this plant here, I struggle with it. But again, like it kind of dies back occasionally and has enough space to travel around in this pot with the palm. I do have I made an old cutting of Monstera adansonii from an old plant that I had years ago. And that's doing okay, but if you actually look, you can see near the fish tank it's really stretched, and basically there's no chlorophyll in there because it's not getting the light. I'm actually going to install a light hanging down from the ceiling, probably somewhat of a grow light right there, so that I can do more of this immersed growth plants in this fish tank, because I think it's so cool how this Monstera is growing out of a tank like this. It's really just a temporary thing, it's just a cutting. But you can see in a matter of a week or less, the new roots are coming out of the aerial roots. Probably the water temperature, but super cool. Hooperiana, I've had this palm for easily 5 years, I think. This palm was probably triple the size back in my parents' garden, or the canopy was triple the spread because it was in part shape. So that's going to be part one for my houseplant tour. I'm in my office right now, and as you can see, this is with the lights turned on. It's not great lighting, so stay tuned for the part 2 of the office tour, and it'll give me a chance to clean up my desk. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully maybe you saw some cool plants. Let me know down in the comments if you grow any of these plants or if you've heard of them. I'd love to hear from you guys. And YouTube is telling me that less than 25% of you are subscribed to the channel, so you know, hit that subscribe button, it's free. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a big ol' thumbs up, just like that. Actually, I need a white glove for the thumbs up thing. I'm not doing that. Alright guys, see you next week. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more content just like this, be sure I just said that. That's a blooper.